Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 17, Episode 12. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, and not with me on this Saturday morning is one Alex Kozora. He's got a lot of running around to do on this Saturday. I think he's got some outfitting to get done. I think he's going to a wedding here. I think he's got to get some grocery shopping in. So in his place, as we run through the Steelers 17-0 loss to the New York Jets in preseason game number 2 on Friday night, is Ross McCorkle, and Ross McCorkle is the co-host. Hopefully you're listening to the Depot Dive that he has with Joe Clark, also a site contributor. So it should be a voice that you've heard before. He's up on the big show today. Ross, happy Saturday morning to you. How are you?
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be on this show. And, well, I think last night, the 17-0 shutout kind of speaks for itself. Not a ton of exciting stuff to get to, but a couple little, I guess, encouraging things along the way. We'll dive into all of that. But overall, I'm doing well.
All right, we will get into the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll cover who did not play in the game, a couple of things that the coaches and some players said after the game. But first, what's going on with Alex? Is your wife helping out with getting him looking like a sharp-dressed man? Or I noticed there was some chatter going on in Discord last night. I think Joe's girlfriend's helping him, and I think maybe your wife's helping him as well, right?
Yeah. He sent an email with some photos of some of the outfits he had, and just, I guess I didn't realize Alex said he's colorblind, and so he was trying to make sure certain things matched the right shades and stuff, and so he needed a little bit of help. And I was laughing a little bit just because the subject line of the email was Alex is in need of fashion help, and it was a pretty funny email.
Did your wife take a look and get him straightened out some, or no?
Oh, yeah. I think he concluded he needed to take a trip to the old men's warehouse. So he's probably there right now as we speak.
All right. He'll get a kick out of that when I guess listening to this probably later on in the day there. So thanks for the help with Alex there. And Alex will be back with me, as we stated on the Friday podcast on Monday. By then, obviously, he'll have a chance to go deeper into the film on top of it there. So, 17-0. Kind of, you don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers shutout very often, whether it be the regular season or the preseason. Obviously had some opportunities, put some points on the board, couple of red zone trips that went awry within that. Let's start first and foremost with the list of players, the long list of players that did not play against the Jets on Friday night. I'm going to read them off as they are listed in the game book here, so in not in any particular order. Mason Rudolph, Jaquan Brisker, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Rodgers, Chris Boswell, Michael Pittman Jr., Dalen Everett, Joey Porter Jr., Brandon Echols, Isaiah McCorkle, Dante Kent Jr., Sebastian Joseph Day, Max Ianichor, Jennings Dunker, Stephen Jones, Brandon Smith, TJ Watt, and Cam Hayward. A lot of those are veterans that were just being held out. Again, obviously, Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter Jr., Dante Kent Jr. remain on the PUP list. You got DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr., both dealing with some minor things. They were out warming up. It doesn't look like it's going to cause those guys missing start of the season. Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph stuff were obviously coaches' decisions. Jaquan Brisker's still trying to get over whatever he got dinged up there in during camp. Everett had the new injury, I guess, last week, along with Dunker. Ionichur's still trying to work his way back from that neck, I guess, shoulder injury. Brandon Smith, who I think was injured in that first preseason game, still a little dinged up there. McQuamu, same situation with him, a little dinged up. And I'm seeing if Brandon Eccles, I think, still dealing with maybe some ankle tenderness as well too. But the good news is leading up to this game, the Steelers did not have to make any roster moves there, so that should give a pretty good sense, at least where it comes to the younger guys on the roster, as to the severity on that. So going into the last preseason game, hopefully several of these guys will be able to play, especially some of these young guys and or rookies, if you will. There, so that's kind of the health update there. Coming out of the game, I don't know if there was anything notable, right? Spencer Anderson, I think, had to get some stitches or something, Ross?
Yeah, he left in the third series. He got some stitches in his lower lip at halftime, and so when you look at the snap share of somebody like a Brock Hoffman who played quite a few snaps, it starts to make a little more sense, especially when Jennings Dunker was not playing. And so, yeah, a lot of the high snap counts that you saw were kind of the same as last week, but the result of just limited bodies out there, and somebody's got to play the snaps. And so, Broderick Jones, I'm sure they want to get him more action. I'm not sure they necessarily wanted him to play the most snaps of anybody. He was out there quite a bit, and that's again a kind of a function of limited bodies out there available. Yeah, I don't really think there were any other injuries. So I thought they would maybe not call up rather, but do some roster moves and, backfill some of these positions that have injuries. Like the wide receiver room's running pretty thin at this point, and I think you started to see that towards the end of the game with Drew Allar and some of the drops that were happening, and that was kind of frustrating. I'm sure we'll get into all of that, but man, some of these rooms are running a little thin at the moment.
Yeah, especially offensive line, especially when you had a guy like Stephen Jones not play, Ionichur did not play, Jennings Dunker did not play. Broderick Jones logged 54 snaps in total. He led the entire team. Ryan McCollum logged 50 there. Doug Nestor on the offensive line logged 40. I think Brock Hoffman logged something like 39. Dylan Cook 33. Jack Driscoll 32 on the offensive line. Spencer Anderson, as you noted, 25 snaps there, and obviously the first teamers, especially from the center on over to the left tackle spot, Frazier, Fautano, and Mason McCormick each logged 19 snaps. I think Greg Crippen got in there towards the end of the game, had 15 snaps, I believe, at center there. And I'm trying to think of who else. I think that's it on the offensive line. I think the big storyline overall on the offensive line was the mixing and matching of the positions, specifically after the left side or center on over to the left side got out of the game there. I think you saw Brock Hoffman, playing multiple positions, switching once again like he did in the first game. I think McCall played some guard in this one. I think let's see who else there. Driscoll was over at left tackle some in this game. I know Cook got some left tackle work, and Broderick Jones getting a lot of right tackle work in this game as well. So there was a lot of mixing and matching on the offensive line. The bad thing overall, outside of, I thought Frazier played good in like his 19 snaps. I thought Fautano, who I know a lot of people worried about coming out of that first preseason game, I thought he represented himself well. I thought Brock Hoffman played reasonably well, but as far as the rest of the offensive line goes, and especially as the game wore on, that's got to be better overall. Now, I think the running game, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there was some pluses in the running game overall, but obviously, and I think Brian Angelico spoke Saturday morning, that they're not getting those explosive runs of 10 yards or more. You didn't see a lot of big runs. Caleb Johnson got a lot of work in this game. I thought Caleb Johnson ran hard there. I thought he had a couple of nice runs. One of those early ones over to the right side. Man, I wish he would have broken that tackle over the overall. But I thought that run aside, and maybe one other where I thought he went down a little bit too quick after contact there. Look, Alex and I talked extensively about him needing to get more snaps in this game. He got some. I don't, even though the effort was there overall, I'm not sure that the numbers are going to speak to him making the 53-man roster at this point. But let's start with you on the offensive line. What stuck out to you, Ross?
Yeah, I thought with the left side of the line stayed in for the first few drives with the starters, and the right side, they were rotating at first, which was interesting. And I mean, I think my biggest takeaway, you talked about it, just the mixing and matching once the starters did come out. The amount of flipping sides and playing different positions that we saw was very interesting to me. I think at this point in the process, you'd kind of hope that things are starting to maybe buckle down and kind of solidify and crystallize a little bit in terms of where guys are playing. And I understand some of the backup guys, it makes more sense to play them left and right because you never know where they're going to need to step in and whatnot. But I don't know. I just think Steelers fans in general have a little bit of PTSD in terms of offensive linemen flipping sides and what that might do to their career. And, you see Broderick Jones and going left, or I guess left to right to left, and just kind of being jerked around a little bit. And then, of course, Kevin Dotson and how good he's been since going to the Rams. I think there's just kind of been a narrative for a while that offensive linemen, it's so hard to flip sides. And I think for some it is, maybe not universally so. And I just think it's interesting that the new coaching staff led by James Campen has not been shy about doing that at all. I think overall, once you get later into the game, we talked about it, the depth issues really started showing up. It became very difficult to evaluate guys like Drew Allar, who was constantly under siege. I think he did a decent job dealing with some of the pressure, but it was overwhelming amount at times for him. Obviously, he got sacked a few times, and the run game, I mean, I would have hoped for a little bit more between Jalen Moore and Rico Dowdle. I think Dowdle had a couple of decent runs there early. Caleb Johnson, if anybody was going to break those big runs, it would have been him. But, man, yeah, he just was lacking that little extra bit of burst to turn those 5-yarders into 10 or 15, or, he even had some wide open run lanes that he could have broken, double explosive runs kind of in that range had he made somebody miss or broken the first tackle. So you didn't really see what you wanted to from Caleb Johnson, although it was obviously better than last week. At least he was on the field. I think the big takeaway with Johnson, since you said it, man, I don't think he played a single special team snap. And so reflecting back to Mike McCarthy and how he kind of explained how you make the roster, if you're not a starting defender, a starting offensive player, you got to be able to contribute in all phases of the game. And right now, Caleb Johnson isn't doing that. I still don't think his odds of making the roster are that great.
No, I don't either there. This team did rush at least for 98 yards. Now, one of them had a Drew Allar scramble, I think, in there for 4 yards. So that takes it down to 94. And I guess, 25 carries outside of that. So 25 for 94. Not even 4 yards a carry on that. The longest run of the game, I think, was Heidenreich of 7 yards. So, they weren't even approaching what many consider explosive runs on the ground, which is at least 10 yards or more. And I think once again, Angelico hit on that. I thought the running game was better than it was in the opener, but in no way, shape, or form is this where it needs to be yet. As they try to work through the rest of the preseason here. Broderick Jones on the offensive line, a rough night for him overall, especially in the pass protecting phase. I think, you definitely could put one sack on him. Whether or not you want to put the first one of the game on him is something I think that's in the eye of the beholder there. Personally, I think after looking at the all 22 a little bit, Will Howard could have potentially stepped up in that situation. And if he had stepped up, he has Pat Freiermuth running right down the middle of the field. And if anything, that's a double explosive play, if not a touchdown on that one there. But it was a quick loss on the outside there, and I think multiple quick losses for Broderick Jones. So he's got a ways to go there. Obviously, Max Iheanacho is yet to play in a preseason game. So it looks like Iheanacho, unless he really is able to come back and play against Buffalo, have a great game. He's going to be out of the running for the starting right tackle spot. It doesn't seem like Broderick Jones is to the place where he can man that spot. So it almost feels like it's going to be Dylan Cook, right, by default to be the starting right tackle in week 1.
Yeah, it feels that way, and I don't know if I feel great about that. I wrote last week and did a film room on him. I didn't think he had the greatest preseason opener. I haven't watched him play to play from this second preseason game. Didn't look, quite as bad on the first watch, but I think he did have some struggles in there as well. So yeah, I agree. That's probably him by default. And Broderick Jones, you hate to see him get worked by a guy who signed with the Jets on August 18th, just a few days ago. So not a great look for him. And I understand he's still gaining weight, getting his strength back, and he has a kind of different journey than most players would at this point in the year. But still, man, you'd hope. I mean, he let someone cross his face, and there's one thing you'd hope Broderick Jones can do with his athleticism and his footwork is mirror somebody back inside. He didn't do it that well. So yeah, it was a rough outing for Broderick. Although, yeah, Angelico said he's a work in progress, and they like some of what they saw, and he's just still trying to get back in his groove. So I don't know what to think of Broderick right now, but any thought of him potentially sneaking into the starting conversation, I think that can be put to rest.
Yeah, how many snaps Broderick played? We said 50 something last night. How many snaps does he have? He's got like 100 snaps, doesn't he, Broderick, for the preseason so far? Let me see if I can pull that up.
Let's see. Last time he had 49. So
Okay.
yeah, 103 snaps he has so far, and another 4 on special teams. So he's been very busy. Most snaps of anyone in both games for the Steelers. So I think, going back to the beginning of camp, Mike McCarthy said they were going to slow roll him, and that hasn't really been the case.
Right. I think he has to probably lead all players on the offensive side of football in snaps played through 2 preseason games. You'd have to think he's going to get a lot of work in the finale as well too. All right, that wraps up the offensive line. Let's get to the elephant position group in the room right now, and that's obviously the quarterback position. Went into last night's game really excited to see all Will Howard and Drew Allar. Howard opening the game, playing the first half, and then Drew Allar the second half. It didn't turn into a very exciting game as far as the quarterback position went. Will Howard in the first half did go 10 of 15 for 74 yards, did have the 2 interceptions, and those interceptions came on the end of when they were actually moving the football. Now, the offense came out a little bit clunky once again to start the football game, and once Will Howard started and the rest of the offense started to get them moving down into the Jets end of the field, you had the 2 costly interceptions there. Both of the interceptions went to Roman Wilson. I think in listening to what Mike McCarthy had to say post-game, what Will Howard said post-game, what I think Angelico said Saturday morning, and then mixing in the tape on top of it. Look, nobody should totally excuse Will Howard for those interceptions. A quarterback throws the ball, those things. My thought is as long as they don't they're not catchable balls that go off of a receiver's hands and bounce up, maybe get intercepted that way. They obviously go in the stat line of the quarterback. So there is obviously some blame to go around for Will Howard on both those, but it feels like the big takeaway is Roman Wilson could have helped his quarterback out more on both those interceptions. More specifically, drifting on both of those interceptions there. Not saying that they still might not have been intercepted. No, on the first one, the Jets are running kind of a cut and replace where the safety's coming down to cut the crosser there. But even so, I think it's quite obvious that Wilson drifts on that instead of cutting that flat. And like probably Will Howard thought he would, the safety comes down, easily jumps that route, and really the one on the other side that they threw to Wilson as well, maybe a little less egregious overall as far as Wilson. But look, I think Mike McCarthy said it at halftime, and he said it after the game as well too. You got a situation there where one mistake turns into two mistakes on each one of those interceptions there, and once again, it's hard. He didn't. He said it without saying it, and Will Howard said it as well too. That they got to clean up the execution on that, and at least half of that goes on Roman Wilson, right?
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. And like Mike McCarthy said last week, that Howard had a couple of plays that things didn't go his way, and he liked the way he dealt with it this time. He had those issues and didn't like the way, obviously, he dealt with it. He threw the 2 interceptions. And so, yeah, Roman Wilson I wrote about him this morning, and man, they've praised him a lot throughout the training camp and OTAs, and we've heard all of this before about him. He practices well. He doesn't translate it into games, and through 2 preseason games, he has, I think, 3 receptions for like a 20 yards or something like that on, I think, 6 targets, and 2 of those 6 targets are now interceptions.
Right.
It doesn't look good for Roman Wilson, but keeping the conversation on the quarterbacks for now. Yeah, you can't excuse the Will Howard for those, but I do think, you have to give him some credit for stringing together some impressive drives outside of the interceptions. At least give him, some credit back for those issues, because I mean, other than those 2 drives, the Steelers I don't think they had another drive that went 10 plays, and Howard had 2 of them in a row. And, it's just the 2 plays that if those went the other way, we'd probably be talking about Will Howard's night in a very much different light. Obviously, you can't really get around the fact that he had the interceptions, but I think there were some positives to take away. He had the completion to Ben Skoranek. I think Skoranek also had one that he could have gotten his foot down and didn't. So there's
on the left side.
Yeah. So there's some kind of a missed yardage, hidden yardage in there that he could have had that he didn't. So I think overall, if you're entering this game, and I guess, now might be a good time to talk about the Jerry Dulac report, but if they were entering this game thinking that they were definitely keeping 4 quarterbacks, and they were thinking that even before his performance last week where he looked pretty good, I don't know that, this immediately changes that calculus.
Look, he had 4? I think they had 4 total possessions in the first half. They went 3 plays, 4 plays, 12 plays, and 10 plays. And unfortunately, the final 2 longer drives ended in interceptions. The last line of scrimmage on the first one was the Jets 14th. The last line of scrimmage on the second one was the Jets 37. And once again, I thought Will Howard made some good decisions and some good throw. The one to Bobby Tonyan, I thought was a good throw. Maybe could have been a little bit more on target with that one there. You mentioned one of the incompletions being to Ben Skoranek over to the left side. That feels like maybe Skoranek maybe could have helped his quarterback out a little bit more on that. He went 10 of 15 in total. We just described one of the incompletions there to Ben Skoranek. 2 of the other ones were completed to the wrong team. Obviously, go down as incompletions there. There was some good within that, and then once again to that first sack of the game. If he steps up, it feels like if he feels that better, steps up into the pocket there. He's got that ball probably goes down the middle of the field to a wide open Pat Fryermuth in that. So definitely some good, bad, and ugly when it comes to Will Howard. But the thing that's going to stick out to most people is going to be those 2 interceptions overall. And I mean, you do that, you get it sacked like he did one time for 11 yards, 38.6 quarterback rating. It does not look good, I guess, in a vacuum overall. Going back to Roman Wilson real quick, this is a third-year player, Ross. Now, look, he had obviously a lot of his rookie season wiped out with the injury there, but these are mistakes, lack of execution. I think that hurt him last year with Aaron Rodgers and gaining the trust there. It's not starting off on the right foot in games, specifically last night in there. This is supposedly going you hope to be your third wide receiver while you bring Jeremy Bernard along in there. I put on Twitter last night, I'm not so sure that this team might not think about looking to maybe the trade market or the post cut down cuts to see about maybe finding another number 3 wide receiver that can function in the offense here, an experienced one obviously, that you could put in there while Jeremy Bernard comes along at the start of the season.
Yes, are the Cowboys looking to cut Marquez Valdes-Scantling? Are we going back down that road? Yeah, I agree. I think Roman Wilson, I mean, you got to keep in mind that the Steelers obviously drafted Jeremy Bernard 47th overall. They traded up to get him. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers did just say he needs to learn the playbook inside and out, and kind of took some, I guess, challenged him, or took some, kind of direct shots to him to challenge him to, he still has a long way to go and all that. But who's looked like the better player throughout the preseason? Jeremy Bernard making plays in the first preseason game. He only had 1 target yesterday in, kind of limited snaps there, but at least he wasn't drifting and causing interceptions. So I think just by way of, not being, I mean, Mike McCarthy is a quarterback developer. And so which position is he paying the most attention to right now, especially in the preseason? Obviously the young quarterbacks. And when he's consistently saying, oh, there's issues outside of the quarterback's control that is hurting the quarterbacks and putting them in bad positions, and that player happens to be Roman Wilson on 1 or 2 or 3 of these plays. I mean, that's not good look from Mike McCarthy on Roman Wilson. This has got to be driving Aaron Rodgers crazy, who's kind of been vouching for him and all off season. And this is probably some of the kind of stuff that kept him off the field last year. We've never gotten a 100% straight answer on all that, but yeah, this kind of precise route running and all of that is stuff that he absolutely needs to be doing. And especially after it happens the first time, you'd think a coach definitely talked to him on the field after it happened the first interception, and then to have it potentially kind of happen again for a second time where he's drifting back, it's just that can't happen.
Yeah, Will Howard, I think, even was asked a question, did he talk to Roman? And yeah, he said, yeah. He did a good job of not completely throwing Roman underneath the bus, but I think it was clear by what McCarthy said and what Will Howard said as far as breaking those things down that the execution was not there from the wide receiver. Let me give you something to chew on here for a moment that I don't think a lot of people might be thinking about. More than likely, this team keeps 6 wide receivers, right? On the 53 at most. You would think it would be few. I suppose it could be fewer than 6, but you got Skoranek, that's a special teamer, occasional snaps on offense. You got Weegan, obviously, your return guy. Going to be hard for him to get snaps on offense here out of shoot. You obviously have Michael Pittman Jr. and DK Metcalf. Those that's 4 right there, and those 4 are getting helmets, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, now might be a good time to.
Do you
I don't know if I.
Do you see where I'm going with this? Is if you put I can't remember what your 53-man roster is, but I assume it's got the 6 wide receivers on it there. There's if you go through your own 53-man roster and you have to pull out 5 inactives, and even if let's say you're carrying 4 quarterbacks and 2 of those quarterbacks are inactives there, who are your other 3 inactives at that point? What I'm getting to here is there's a good chance no matter what way this roster shakes out, that either Jeremy Bernard or Roman Wilson are going to be inactive to start the season.
Yeah, and at this rate, would anyone be all I mean, he has one more chance to kinda redeem himself next week, but with recency bias in mind, right now, Roman Wilson might be that guy. I do wanna have a conversation, Dave, about Caden Weegan because it wasn't a great game for him yesterday at all. And obviously Mike McCarthy was it Mike McCarthy? Yeah, Mike McCarthy last week after his big 74-yard reception said, frankly, we need to see that more. He needs to be finishing those plays. We need to see more of him on offense, et cetera, et cetera. He didn't really contribute much on offense in this game, but what he did have was some pretty bad special teams errors, starting with the opening kickoff. It went through the landing zone. It didn't land in the landing zone. It went straight to the end zone, and he decided to return it. He only returned it out to about the 20 when he could have been out to the 35 for free. Now, in the preseason, could they have instructed him just to return it? I don't think they probably would. You probably want to practice how you play and get the guys used to, the rule set and everything like that. So that was one mistake. He obviously had the botched, or he almost muffed one, and he had the fumble. It was just a rough game for him overall. And when you already have Mike McCarthy challenging you, and I don't know, like uh, he's a fourth-round pick, so I don't think he's gonna get cut, but I think
No.
there is a conversation about him just like, what do you do with Weegan right now?
Well, look, you hope to work that stuff out here through the rest of the what's left of training camp and the off-season practices, and obviously the last preseason game in the return category, because that's 98% of what his job's going to be here. I don't think he's in danger of getting cut just yet, but I think there are some coaching points, as you said, that need to be made. And man, you can't, whatever and it was close over there on the sideline. You can't turn the football over, absolutely there. So I'm less worried about that, because on top of it too, we're talking about, even though he's classified as a wide receiver, I don't think we're expecting him to get a lot of snaps on offense here. I think the biggest crux, my biggest fear right now, is how far along is Jeremy Bernard in the trust category as he starts his NFL career here, and where Roman Wilson is right now. What is this going to? The fans are going to be hot if Jeremy Bernard winds up on the inactive list in week one for in lieu of Roman Wilson getting a helmet there, right? I mean, because I invite, don't do this obviously right now, but I invite you and really the listeners as well too. Go through your own 53-man rosters and pick out who the team's got to have 5 inactives. That's the rules. And if people are carrying 4 quarterbacks, two of the quarterbacks obviously would be inactive, with one of them being the emergency third within that. Who are your other 3 inactives outside of that, especially if you're only keeping 3 running backs, because Travis Homer's going to get a helmet? Sure, 1 offensive lineman might be inactive if you keep 9 in total, but you still got 1 more inactive to choose from overall. So, could it be a defensive back? I suppose. I doubt it would be a linebacker, especially if you're carrying 5 inside linebackers and 4 inside linebackers. You're probably going to dress all those guys there. If you carry 6 defensive linemen, you're probably going to dress all 6 of those there. So just all I'm saying is be prepared, listeners, for week one, when that inactive list hits 90 minutes before game time, of either one of Roman Wilson or Jeremy Bernard to be inactive for that game. And I think the fan base is going to be mighty upset, especially the way Roman Wilson has played so far, if Jeremy Bernard ends up being inactive. So that's just some food for thought when it comes to that. Back to Will Howard. Is a C minus grade too lenient for what he did in the first half?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think maybe a little bit. I probably do a D. I mean, we're splitting hairs here, but I probably put him more in the D plus kind of category. You can't, as we said, at the end of the day, you can't have the 2 interceptions. And Mike McCarthy challenged him to start faster, and the first quarter was a disaster with 2 3 and outs basically there. So I tend to be a little more harsh on him.
All right, and obviously we didn't get to see Will, I don't think, really air it out much in this game, either overall there. I thought he had, pretty good command of the huddle overall. Saw him go through the checks and the cans and all like that. I think operationally he was fine. I just think some of the decision making, obviously on the 2 interceptions there, and once again, I think some of the blame, obviously goes to Roman Wilson there. But those go on the quarterback, and you can't turn the football over in games, and you certainly can't turn the football. The only one of the real positives, I guess, here was after the first interception there, and Alex and I talked about this as well too. How does a player like that respond? And he did come out on that next drive, and what did he go 4 for 4 or 5 for 5 or something like that to start the drive? And so I thought he rebounded from it nice. But none of that means anything when you go down once again and end the drive with the interception there. So four series for him. There was not much to talk about in the first 2 series, and then obviously the second 2 series, even though there were some good throws within there, are punctuated and highlighted, sadly, by the 2 interceptions there. All right, Drew Allar. Boy, it's hard to really get a kind of a complete breakdown of his play in here, because it felt like he was playing with a lot of future Amazon drivers plus Broderick Jones for for most of the second half there. As you mentioned, unaddressed quite a bit, 11 of 23 overall. You hate to see that completion percentage, 47.8. I think there were a couple of drops within there as well too. One incompletion, I think, that was on a third down to end the drive over to the right side, was I think it was Ryan Clark's kid had to break up over there. I thought it was he gave his guy a chance. Who was it? Lineman over there on that. So I forget who that was targeted for, but it did go off his hands. But I thought Ryan Clark's kid did a good job of breaking that up overall there. I think the highlight of what Drew Allar did in that game was the out of structure play. Break and contain, getting out to his left, and then you saw the tight end Lake McCree get free down the field, and Drew Allar was able to put it on him for what was that, 38-yard gain. I think that was the longest. Not only was that the longest play of the game, I think it was the only explosive play that this team had as well too. But other than that, and then you start mixing in look, the offense didn't have any accepted penalties in the first half. I think it was kind of a tick on that interception. I thought that was kind of a ticky-tack maybe call on who was that over there that got that called on him? That would have been Hurlman. I think that was Hurlman that got that OPI on him. But regardless, that was still an interception on that side anyway. But 0, it made you. If there was very few positives to come out of the first half, was the fact that they did not have any accepted penalties in the first half. But in the second half, they attempted to make up for it overall, and this team ended with 4 for 30. I think there was a couple of holds within there. Trying to remember what may have been the other penalties within that as well too. But there were a couple of situations where Drew Allar starting 2nd and 20. I think Mike McCarthy went over that in the press conference as well too there. Behind the sticks a lot most of when Drew Allar was in the game there. And then as the game wore on and these reserves got in there, he didn't have a lot to work with overall on the receiving end. Couple of drops once again. I think the bright spot pretty much overall was the break and contain and the out of structure throw by Drew Allar.
Yeah, there was a hold on Levi Wentz and a hold on Ryan McCollum that put him, behind the sticks there to start a couple of his series. So, but yeah, that one play was enough to kind of open some eyes. I mean, he got through 2 or 3 reads in there without kind of getting the happy feet and bailing from the pocket. And once the second read wasn't there, he went out of structure, kind of threw off his off platform or maybe even off his back foot. It looked easy. I mean, that's not an easy throw to make, and really it was quite accurate. And then, the wherewithal to rush to the line of scrimmage and kind of get that next play off so it couldn't be reviewed. I liked everything about that play from Allar.
And I think one of those incompletions came after that play to McCree where he kind of threw it into the dirt. Who was that?
Yes.
Heidenreich or whatnot? Or Kayla, I can't remember who was over on that side there. So that was one of his incompletions. Once again, I think there was a couple of drops. I haven't even looked at what PFF considered as the drops in that game. Let me do that while I'm thinking about it. I know there had to be at least
3.
two, because and there was one where who was it? He put it on Bell, and Bell, I think, double caught one. Yaheem Bell in the middle of the field, double caught one. And there was one to, was it Mason? I think that maybe should have had a catch in that game. I don't think he was charged with a drop on that one, though. Overall,
Receiving. All right, here's what PFF has. They have got drops. They have only 2, one from Joaquin Davis and one from Lake McCree.
okay,
But yeah,
maybe Lake McCree maybe is the one I was thinking of, not Mason. That felt like McCree should have had. I'm trying to remember the one to Joaquin Davis.
Yeah, I am too. I feel like there was one to, was there not one to Jaheim Bell? I feel like he got pulled immediately after he dropped one.
I thought there might have been one more. In my head, I thought I had 3 drops. So
Yeah, same.
we'll have to go back through that. So once again, another situation where your receivers have got to help you out some with that. So once again, I don't think for where Allar is in this thing and for what he was asked to do with the personnel that he was given, once again, under duress with the offensive line and having to start a couple situations there, 2nd and 20 type situations. I thought it was okay. Obviously, look, it was nothing to write home from the offense. Regardless throughout the game, he tried to put that 2-minute drive there together at the end of the game, and came down to the last play of the game and having to just basically throw it out of the end zone in that situation there. So I kind of give Drew Allar more of an incomplete and obviously a non-passing grade to Will Howard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just looking at what Mike McCarthy said after the game, he didn't really say anything all that negative about either quarterback. He did say that the execution needs to be better, and he said you don't let one mistake turn into 2, kind of aimed at Howard. But when it came to Allar, he really didn't get into any of the negatives with Allar, which I thought was kind of interesting or telling. I think he's probably in the same line of thinking as us. It's like, man, he really didn't have much to work with there. And I think that leads us to, like, are they going to potentially play Allar first next week?
Well, I think it was hinted. It's been hinted, or McCarthy hinted to, who was it, Missy Matthews, that we're going to see those same 2 quarterbacks next week. I think that's the general feeling right now at this point, is that we're going to see Howard and Allar. I do think it's only fair at this point, if that is indeed going to be the case. I think you at least owe it to Allar to put him out there first with whatever group that you roll out there in this preseason finale, and then let Howard come in at halftime and take over from there. I think that would be the right thing to do. But it sounds like McCarthy's seen enough from Mason, period. He obviously knows what he has in Aaron Rodgers. And I know a lot of people saying, well, this, you should use this as a tune-up game. But if they don't want to risk throwing out their Pittman and DK Metcalf, I bet Aaron Rodgers refuses to go out there and play in that one there. So we'll see what ultimately happens. But it does feel like we're set for another Allar Howard game to wrap the preseason up here, and it would not hurt my feelings if Allar went first in this. The other report, I guess, that we can talk about too is Jerry Dulac not only saying on DVE radio pregame, but I think he wrote about it after the game as well too, is that sources have told him that both of the young quarterbacks are going to be kept in both Will Howard and Drew Allar on the 53-man roster. And based on what we've seen at this point, you would have to think, and based on entirely off of what Mike McCarthy has said all offseason about Mason Rudolph, it would make one feel like Mason Rudolph's going to be on this team as well too, which in turn, if all of this interpretation and report from Jerry Dulac is true, that we are headed toward this team keeping 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. I've been leaning that way for, I don't know, the last week and a half. I feel like just, I don't know, it's all been talked about so much, but I keep coming back to the fact that Mike McCarthy directly called Will Howard he used, quote, definitely a future starter in this league. And you talk about, obviously, you're not going to cut Drew Allar, having picked him in the top 100. And Mike McCarthy just said they more or less viewed him as a first round talent. So, I think with what they've shown so far in the preseason, especially in light of last night, you can't really feel comfortable about either one of them coming off the bench and getting you out of a stadium or, God forbid, getting you out of, starting a couple games if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. It wouldn't be the craziest thing ever for a guy who's soon to turn 43 to get hurt. And so, I really feel like we're heading towards keeping 4 quarterbacks, which is going to create some interesting roster math elsewhere.
I have been bucking this all along. My contention going into the preseason is if Will Howard can show this team enough through training camp and the preseason to be the number 2, then he should be the number 2 and Mason Rudolph should be jettisoned. I don't think we're there, obviously, yet. In the same breath, let me ask you this, was Will Howard look, it obviously the first game was much better than the second game. It's not even, that's not even up to debate when it comes to Will Howard. Was the second game bad enough to get him cut?
I'd have to look back at Dulac's initial, how he worded what he said, but I thought he said that they were kind of decided on keeping both of the 2 young guys before last week's preseason game even. So if you were deciding that before the good stuff that happened last week, I wouldn't think that the bad stuff this week, which kind of cancels out last week, I just wouldn't think that would change the calculus. I don't think it was bad enough to, McCarthy specifically said, like, I look in these guys' eyes and I didn't see any blink. They weren't like shook by the mistakes, and he liked how they respond. I think he said directly, like, I'm not really concerned right now. So I don't think that the calculus has changed in terms of if they were going to keep Howard, now they're on the fence. But interesting about the idea of potentially starting Allar next week and having Howard take the second half. Would you do that, Dave, if you don't have the answer to that question yet? If Howard is the pivotal player, would you not want to see him again with the starters, see if he can dig himself out of that?
Yeah, that's a good point, because look, if you were to carry 4 quarterbacks and that Drew Allar is going to be one of them, and more than likely he is going to lead, probably, unless he just the only thing I would say is would you give Drew Allar enough runway to win the number 3 spot, I guess, against Will Howard. And then if that's the case, and if you felt comfortable with that, and let's say Howard comes into the second half next week and doesn't play well, is that enough to warrant not keeping Howard at that point?
Yeah.
But as much as I have bucked this all along, it's so hard to look. You had to go all the way back to, I think it was 1998 when Alex and I, or 99 when Alex were talking, the last time that Steelers kept 4 quarterbacks. And not only did they keep the 4 quarterbacks on to open a season, they carried all 4 all throughout the regular season. And it's hard. That is hard to manage a roster. It can be done, obviously, especially in the age of it's a lot easier to do it now as opposed to in 99, because now you got the practice squad elevations to work from within there. But I guess where I'm going with this is, as much as I have bucked the whole 4 quarterback notion right out of the chute, I think I'm resigned to the fact that it's probably going to be 4.
Welcome to the dark side, Dave.
Yeah, yeah. But did you start off in the 3 category, or have you all along thought that it might be 4?
I was 3 up until about a week and a half ago, and I've shifted pretty hard the other way.
Okay. All right. As far as running back decisions go at this point, uh, and especially if you keep 4 quarterbacks, Caleb, it feels like Caleb Johnson doesn't have a chance. It doesn't feel like Eli Heidenreich has a chance. It doesn't feel like Lou Nichols, who I thought represented himself well. Here's something about the running backs overall in this game. I thought the running backs in pass protection, for the most part, represented themselves well.
Yeah, there were a couple issues last week, and those didn't really show up again this week. I think there might have been. I'm trying to remember my notes. I think I had one down where there was a rough blitz pickup and it kind of
Was it? I
resulted
think
in.
that was Eli, wasn't it?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Late in the game there.
I have that in my notes as well too. I think one of them didn't have a good, but I think Eli kind of made up for it later in the game with a good pass pro. I remember, but here's the thing with Eli Heinrich, man. He was such a good receiver. I almost wish they wouldn't have stuck him in that running back room,
Right.
and giving him more shots at wide receiver, because even in when he was used at Navy as a running back, it what really wasn't as a true kind of running back type situation there. But it does not fit. Travis Homer is going to make this roster because of his special teams play, right?
Feels like it. He didn't play what? He only played through like a few snaps last night, I'm pretty sure. And
On
another handful.
offense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on offense, and then another handful on special teams. And I think Alex and I were discussing, is that a bad thing for him that he didn't really play? And I tend to think no, just because Mike McCarthy said he wanted to give the young guys as many chances as possible to make the team. And I think he even specifically praised Travis Homer by name last week as somebody who can fulfill that every phase of the game, desire they have for depth players. And so, yeah, it really feels like Homer is not a lock, but really close to one at this point.
All right. So if you keep 4 quarterbacks, if you keep 3 running backs, if you keep 6 wide receivers, if you keep 4 tight ends, and I'm including Nowakowski in that, Tanya's making this team. There's no doubt about it. Nowakowski, you would think, is making this team as well too. So 4 in that group, and if you keep 9 offensive linemen, that puts you, I think, 26 on the offensive side of football.
Yep. My last prediction, I ended up with 26, and then you have some pretty hard decisions to make on the defensive side.
I guess the only question is, will Ihanachor and or Dunker be healthy enough to avoid a 4-week run on the IR to start? And even if that were the case, if one of those guys had to go to IR, yeah, it's hard to imagine this team going into the regular season with just 8 offensive linemen.
Well, and they still have to pass through the initial cutdowns, don't they? If they are not healthy. So, and Jennings Dunker's somebody who I've kind of had circled as somebody who could potentially use a redshirt year, where maybe stashing him on IR and keeping somebody like a Stephen Jones, if he's healthy or whatever, might make some sense. So I could see that. But yeah, I think the offensive line room's one of the difficult decisions, and then man, the defense as a whole. Now that Landon Roberts is in the equation, it really complicates things in terms of, because I initially had them keeping 4 inside linebackers. Now it's hard to see that happening. So,
all right, any final thoughts on this game, at least through the tape that we've gotten through on the offensive side of football?
Oh, let's see. Y.A. Black had that batted pass. That was nice to see.
No, I'm talking offense.
Oh, offense.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Anything to wrap up there on the offense from last night?
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, let's flip over to the defensive side of football. And once again, you had several starters out of this game. I have not gone through with a fine-tooth comb of the defensive tape. I did spot check a couple players that I wanted to watch, to see how they performed, along with going through the TV tape last night. First and foremost, starting on a defensive line. It's unfortunate we haven't seen Sebastian Joseph Day play a snap yet. I sure would like to see him get out there for the finale against Buffalo. We'll see that if that happens. I don't need to see Cam Hayward out there, I don't think. Obviously Harmon's making this team. I thought Benton had a pretty nice game overall last night against the Jets. I think the most interesting thing at this point, and this assumes the team keeps 6 defensive linemen in total here. I thought Rubio played well in this game. I did not think this game was as good as the first preseason game against the Packers, but I still think he represented himself well. I think Dean Lowry had another good game though, and I think that makes 2 in a row from him. Outside of that, when it comes to defensive line, nobody really stuck out to me. I think Y.A. Black, as you mentioned, had the bat down in there. Evidently that went into an offensive lineman's hands. I didn't
Yeah.
didn't know that until after the fact. I thought Black represented himself well again. I think the most interesting thing here is a Rubio versus Dean Lowry battle, and if it's close. If it's that close and you're only keeping 6, do you go with the draft pick in Rubio, who I think is better against the run, more so than Lowry? But don't get me wrong, I think Lowry has had a nice preseason through 2 preseason games. Obviously, he's played a lot of ball and he's a lot more experienced and probably the better pass. Well, not probably. He is a better pass rusher of the 2, albeit not great in Dean Lowry's case there. But I think those 2 have got themselves in a position where it's at least worthy of talking about a battle between the 2 of them for perhaps a 6th and final spot, because I don't think Otamawo is that guy.
Yeah, and I thought, he was pretty solid last year. I kind of had him penciled into my defensive line. I mean, this is the thing with keeping the 4 quarterbacks, and now that Landon Roberts is in the picture, I had 7 defensive linemen. Now, if you're forced to keep 6, then yeah, I think I would personally lean towards Gabriel Rubio, but I think it just depends who you think you have a better chance of getting through to because if you're only going to keep 6, one of them you really would like to try to get them on the practice squad so you can call them up or re-sign them later in the season to the active 53, and I don't know who I think would. I just because
I think Lowry would make it to the practice squad. I don't know
Yeah.
if there's too many NFL teams, barring injury type situation. And look, Rubio's been great against the run, man. And if I can get him in a helmet on game day, even if it's for as a, let's say, an 8 snap per game guy, as one of 6 active defensive linemen, then I definitely would want him out there in short yardage and goal line situations, because I think he's that good at clogging up the middle, specifically against the run. And then, from the acts of rotation of the rest of the defensive line throughout the game, I think you could get him another, I don't know, 5 or 6 snaps along within there. And I think he's got enough on tape right now that if I'm an NFL team and I needed a 6th or 7th defensive lineman, I think Rubio's done enough that I might be interested in claiming him if he was waived.
Yeah, I think a lot of people assume just because they had never heard of him through draft season that he's going to be easy to sneak through to the practice squad. But these NFL personnel departments are paid to watch a whole lot of tape and keep their ears and eyes close to the ground. And certainly somebody young that's putting decent stuff on tape like Rubio would be more attractive or interesting than a Dean Lowry who, yes, he's experienced, but he's towards the end of the career, he's had those injuries recently. And so I agree. Probably I would lean towards keeping Rubio, try and get Lowry on the practice squad and go from there.
All right. Anything else stick out to you from what you've seen so far on the tape on the defensive line?
I haven't watched that group too closely yet, so I don't think so.
All right, Alex and I will mop up a little bit more, and I'll get his thoughts on some of this after he goes through the all 22 on Monday there. Inside linebacker, I thought that group overall played well against the Jets. And Landon Roberts was out there with guys that I bet he didn't know a lot of their names
Yeah.
late in that game. And Landon Roberts was taking people's lunch money right and left. Landon Roberts is still that dude that we remember from a couple of years ago with the Steelers overall there. I have no issues about him. I guess because he wore the green dot because somebody had to get out there that knew how to get people lined up right. I suppose that and the kind of the lack of bodies, I suppose that's why he played the amount of snaps that he did. We saw Patrick Queen get a TFL in this game. I thought him and Wilson, Peyton Wilson played well during the time that they were in the game. What about Carson Bruner? A nice game for Carson Bruner in this game. I think he had 3 or 4 plays in this game that were kind of notable overall. He come on one of those sacks there and just absolutely destroyed the running back. I think he had a pass breakup, kind of dropping into a short area over there to the left side on one of those. It seemed like he had a couple of tackles along with it. And this is a guy that's potentially your 5th inside linebacker, and obviously more notable, going to give you the special team snaps there as a core player, more than likely there. I thought Bruner represented himself real well. So I think top to bottom, and I don't think did Malik Harrison play a defensive snap in this game?
I don't think so. Did he get some at edge late in the game?
Let me
Malik
look at.
Harrison. I don't think he played any snaps.
I don't think he did play any snaps on defense there. Well, look, he's going to be out the door here pretty soon anyway here. But I thought the inside linebacker group played well.
Yeah, I agree. I've been high on Carson Bruner for a little while now. I think just watching him last year for the rookie report I do for the site, just a lot of the things he did on special teams were things that are translatable to defense. I mean, some special teamers will try and run around guys and kind of win with speed, athleticism, and finesse. And I really thought a lot of his special teams tackles were the result of things you'd see on defense, like stacking, shedding, and closing in on the tackle. And so I've kind of thought like, all right, Bruner's somebody who could definitely contribute on defense in the future. I don't know to what degree, but it was nice to see some of that come to life in yesterday's game. I kind of thought, maybe he'd have a shot at having a smaller role on defense this year. I don't know if that'll be the case right now, unless some injuries occur now that they brought in a Landon Roberts. But they've had some rash of injuries in that room in the past. I think 2023 or 2024, whatever year it was, they had like 9 different starters or something at inside linebacker. Hopefully we don't get to that, but it's nice to have a guy like Carson Bruner if they do. Patrick Queen, it was nice to see the TFL like you mentioned, but what did you get a chance to see what happened on the touchdown there where the guy was basically untouched in the end zone? Was that
that was a miscommunication with him and Highsmith, I think, somewhere within there.
Yeah.
I haven't spent time. I know Charlie Batch mentioned that, I think, during the broadcast, during the replay there. I don't know who screwed it up, but somebody let the guy loose over there for the easy touchdown.
Yeah, it's the preseason, and so mistakes are going to happen. But at the same time, I don't know how complex the play calls are at this time. And also, Patrick Queen is the communicator, so if there was a miscommunication, either way, that might kind of sort of be his issue. So I don't know. It's hard to really say without knowing exactly what was called there, but. That's the one thing on Queen there, especially given some of the communication issues that the defense has had in the past with him wearing the green dot. So that's my only kind of worry in that sense. But yeah, I thought overall the inside linebacker group played pretty well.
All right, the outside linebacker group, I think, kind of highlighted. We saw Nick Herbig do some good things early. He had that kind of inside rush against a guard with a cross chop there that got a good pressure and a hit in that game. Obviously, Watt didn't play. I don't think Highsmith really, for the amount of snaps he was in the game, other than run defense, nothing really stuck out there. The other guy, Jack Sawyer, was a guy that Alex and I talked about. Would like to see him make some plays in this game, and I thought he did. Coming off the edge and getting a bat down one time. Obviously, he had a sack in that game that he shared with. Was that I'm trying to think who he shared that sack with in the game there. But I thought once again, I thought Sawyer had a good game in there. Welshoff really didn't stick out. Who else? Jamin Davis was okay, but I don't think he made the amount of plays, obviously, that he made in the preseason opener. It goes without saying that I think the four outside linebackers is what it's been, and that obviously is Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, and Jack Sawyer.
Yeah, Sawyer ended up getting the full sack on that, so
Okay.
whoever, I guess was back there got the short end of the stick there, but he was untouched, I believe. He got some of that
Mhm.
5-star, whatever Tomlin always used to say about him. He always just seems to get the light shines bright on Jack Sawyer, so but, the one interesting thing about the outside linebacker group that I noticed was they did some of the 3 outside linebacker stuff, which was good to see. I think we're gonna see more of that this year than obviously last year. I think Herbig was the one, even with Watt not in the game, Herbig was still the one kind of in the inside, like you said there with the one rush he had that was successful there. So, interesting to see that and, just int pretty, I guess, eager to see what that looks like once the full group's out there.
All right, the corner play in this game right out of the chute and throughout the game wasn't great outside of the tackling, I thought. And look, I think what needs to be highlighted about the defensive play overall from the game against the Jets is once again for a second straight game. I thought the tackling was very good on that side of football. I think only 2 or 3 missed tackles. It might have been even fewer missed tackles than the game against the Packers. So for a team that was not all that physical and did not tackle during training camp, I think they have answered the bell through the first 2 preseason games. Now the first opening series with Geno Smith going 7 for 7 down the field. Seemed to be a lot of open guys, a lot of easy
Mhm.
pitch and catch with that. We talked about the final one on that, the touchdown pass, which was a gimme of one of those right there, and then also I think the Jets converted 2 third downs fairly easily on that opening drive, and they were 5 of 15 on third downs for the entire game, and 2 of those came on the opening drive there. So I guess that makes the rest of the defense 3 of 13. I guess the rest of the game there overall on third down there. You would have liked to seen this the opening defense, albeit they did not obviously have Brisker out there, did not have Porter, did not have Ramsey, did not have Brandon Eccles. I mean, that's a good chunk of your
Yeah.
secondary right there. So I think, for what happened, for what's in there, yeah, you would like to have seen it better when it comes to that. And obviously you didn't have your horses up front and Hayward and Watt is part of that as well too. I thought the safety position is where we saw some guys shine. I thought you saw Rashawn Jenkins do some more good things in this game. Welcome back Deshaun Elliott. How good was it to see him back
Yeah.
on the field? Made a couple of plays there. He had a nice strip on one of those completions. It's a shame they didn't come up with that ball. So I thought it was good to see Elliott back. And then Robert Spears Jennings just continues to show up
Mhm.
on tape. He had a nice pass breakup, very physical play there. This is a guy that uses his speed to get out on the edge and help make some tackles within that. So I think when you talk about guys like Rashawn Jenkins, you talk about Elliott, you talk about Robert Spears Jennings. Did not get a chance to focus a lot on the later guys like Jack Henderson and Castro and a few of the other safeties that they had out there. But I thought the meat part, the early and the middle part of the game of the safeties that were out there, I thought they represented themselves well.
Yeah, Asante Samuel Jr. on that, I think he was one of the third downs there. Garrett Wilson just honestly had a really nice route on him, and I think it was an out route that he just kinda beat, Asante Samuel Jr. on, so that was not a huge kind of concern, but, yeah, the wide open one, I forget who that was to, out there on the left side, but Jamel Dean
Early
was
in the game, he got turned around. Yeah.
Yeah, he just kinda opened his hips a little too early and wasn't able to snap back the other way wide open, so, yeah, some of that stuff was not great to see, but I guess, you might have some of you ideally, you have Joey Porter Jr. on the top guy, and that knocks down, Jamel Dean to the second guy, and then maybe it's a different story with some of that, but, yeah, I think Robert Spears-Jennings, I did a film room on him that I posted this morning, and I think, he made a pretty good case for himself to make the roster. Now, that being said, Rayshawn Jenkins also looked good, so that complicates things for him. But Robert Spears-Jennings looked good on defense and special teams. He was acting as the gunner. He forced a penalty on one of the opening punt coverage
Yeah, you
snaps
did.
that he had, and so
Got it.
that was good to see. He on one of the other gunner snaps, he showed the ability to kind of beat the jam because that first one he basically just blazed right by the guy with his speed. So you want to see him also be able to beat the jam, which he did. He was also acting as a jammer on a couple of the punt snaps, and I think he did a good job there. There was one where the gunner got away from him, and because he's so fast, he managed to recover and actually end up blocking the guy, which was impressive. And then on defense, he had the one where he broke up the pass over the middle. He triggered downhill and broke that one up. He was kind of aligned as an off-ball linebacker in that instance, and he kind of dropped back as a zone defender and closed in on that and timed that hit perfectly to break up the pass. He had a couple. He triggered downhill to break up. I think it was like a tight end spilling out into the flat. That was another nice one. He limited that gain to 3 yards. So he's showing his sure tackling. He's showing his closing speed. He's quick to diagnose the plays. I liked what I saw from him a lot.
I did as well too. And if we're talking about whatever configuration you want to come up with on the offensive side of football, and assuming 4 quarterbacks are kept, and that side of football ends up being 26 in total, we've already identified, you know, the defensive line is going to probably be a number of 6. We already know who 5 of those are going to be. We pretty much have identified who the 9 linebackers are going to be at this point. It's easy to go through the top 5 corners and obviously the top 3. I think safeties of or top 2 plus whatever room you want to put Jalen Ramsey in. Could is keeping a 4th quarterback, could it? Now look, you got one preseason game to go and injuries happen, and you just never know how things are going to shake out here. But might the 53 actually come down, assuming you keep 4 quarterbacks, to a decision between Robert Spears-Jennings and Rayshawn Jenkins?
Yeah, I think unfortunately it could. And
I guess that's a good problem to have.
yeah, it's not the end of the world but the Steelers, Mike McCarthy kind of admitted that, like, yeah, we don't really have that many free safety types in this room, guys that have that kind of speed and range to cover sideline to sideline. And I think, Spears-Jennings actually is better closer to the line of scrimmage right now than he is at free safety, but he has the speed and kind of the skills to develop into that role. And so I would hate to get rid of him. I mean, he's the fastest, probably one of the fastest guys on the whole roster right now. And the secondary, they have a lot of good things in this secondary right now, but speed isn't necessarily one of them, and he can kind of add that element, maybe not right away, but developing over time. And so I would hate to see Robert Spears-Jennings go, and I don't know if he'd be able to. I mean, do you
He's
think
good on special teams, man.
Yeah.
And plus he's got the athletic traits. Is he a guy that a team's going to claim off waivers that's going to go in there and start on defensive side of football? I think the obvious answer is no. But if you are looking for a 4th or 5th safety and one that could give you potentially be a core special teamer, and look, Jenkins could potentially handle that role for the Steelers as well too, but he is older, and I think long term, I think Spears-Jennings fits better as a backup free safety type than obviously Rayshawn Jenkins does. And based on kind of what McCarthy has said, I mean, he's a draft class member. I don't think he's done anything that's cut himself. I think if Robert Spears-Jennings does not make this 53, he got cut by math.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there were some reports that one of the recent practices he got they had a pretty rough practice or whatnot. But yeah, I think overall, in terms of what he's put on tape in the preseason and just his larger body of work has been good enough to state his own case. And it's just kind of up to the tight roster math from there.
All right. You obviously don't like to see that late touchdown being given up to who was it? Skinner that got loose on the left side. Who was in coverage on that? Was
Ooh,
that Deshaun Jameson over there?
that was, yeah, I'm not 100%
I
sure
don't
that
I don't
sounds
have it
right, but
pulled up. I don't know if it was Porter or Deshaun Jameson over on that side. I can't remember, but obviously that was late in the game there, and whoever it was over on that side, probably not going to make the roster anyway. There, I think the biggest unfortunate thing is Dalen Everett had to sit this thing out with a minor injury. You would have liked to seen him log 25 to 30 snaps in this game.
yeah, that one was on Jameson, at least according to Pro Football Focus.
Okay, I thought it was. All right. Anything else to wrap up on the defensive side of football? Are you with me? You thought the tackling was good. I thought they played the run reasonably well there. They gave up 62 yards on the ground, rushing net. And let's see, they let the quarterback Klubnik loose on one of those for 16 yards. I think their quarterbacks had a couple of scrambles in there as well too. There, so I think that's mixed in. They had one long run of 16 yards. That was the Klubnik run. Outside of that, I think their longest run was 8 yards in this game. So I thought defensively, outside of that first drive, which obviously they go down 7 for 7 in the air, two third down conversions. Thought and then obviously the late touchdown to Skinner from Cook. Outside of that, I thought the tackling was sound. Thought some guys made some plays that you want to make in this play. I thought defensive line overall played well overall. So definitely the defense played, even though 17 points were allowed on the board there. I think the defensive unit was the better unit than the offense. It goes without saying.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. PFF had them for 2 missed tackles only, which is a pretty good number. Our Josh Carney hasn't put together his report yet, but I'm sure it'll be a similarly low number, and that's encouraging to see.
All right, special teams. Boswell did not kick in this game like we thought. Marjan, not that he had a chance to make this roster, but you're not going to make any roster in the NFL missing kicks. How long was the kick that he missed? It was.
What was it, 46 or something?
I don't have my kicks in front of me here. I don't think kicking Marjan. I don't have the length on that.
It is 44.
Okay. Yeah, you got to make those. It would have been nice just to get that on the scoreboard for
Right.
just to not get shut out there. What else? Anything else on special teams? I haven't gone through the special teams tape to even look at it there.
Oh, we talked about Weegan. The only other thing is Cameron Johnston looked pretty good. It makes you wonder why the heck he didn't win that competition last year over Corliss Waitman. But he got his work in yesterday. He
six for 303 yards, 50.5 average, 57 long, one inside the 20, and I think that one inside the 20 came early-ish in the game there. I'm up for not seeing Cameron Johnston having to punt 6 times in a game.
Yes, but at a certain part of that game, Cameron Johnson was like one of the biggest stars, which kind of tells you everything you need to know about yesterday's preseason game.
All right, Jerry Dulac, being as we're wrapped up the game now, Jerry Dulac on DVE during the pregame show there says nothing new to report, that they're not even close on a contract extension with Joey Porter Jr. Let me take your temperature. Let me pull the thermometer out here. Where are you on a Joey Porter Jr. situation? Do you think they get a deal done with him by week 1? And what do you make of that noise that Jordan Schultz put out there that Alex and I talked about on the Friday show?
Yeah, man, I do think there's obviously like media warfare between agents and they use the media to kind of send a message and increase urgency. But what, we're 21 days, I think, or something like that away from the regular season opener. And there isn't really a whole lot of time left. I mean, there is still plenty of time to get a deal done, obviously, but that time's going to fly by. And Dulac has consistently reported that no significant conversations have taken place, which makes me think that they are quite far apart in their numbers. If Joey Porter Jr. thinks he's top 5, that places him in the 30 million APY range. Obviously, the guarantees and the structure also matters, but if we're just talking APY and rankings there, 30 million is kind of the top 5 starting price now. And the Steelers have that franchise tag in their back pocket at 23, whatever, projected next year. And I fear that the Steelers are kind of maybe offering him closer to 24, 25, and he's wanting 30. And how are they going to close that gap? And the fact that they haven't even had significant conversations yet makes me think that there is a pretty large gap. And so I'm perhaps a little bit more skeptical than you guys are just listening to the podcast the other day. I definitely would say that the highest likelihood is that he resigns, but there is part of me that wonders about the possibility of a trade, especially given Asante Samuel Jr. and just his emergence. I don't think if he had not emerged, and been like the training camp MVP, you probably wouldn't be having this conversation at all. But just the fact that they have Dalen Everett, who's looking really good as a rookie, and they seem to like him, called him, think they have a home run with him, and then also Asante Samuel Jr., I could see at least some small likelihood that a trade is at least possible.
Plausible.
Plausible, yes.
I think they could get him to a 30 million number, but I think it would come at the cash flow, the early year cash flow, and obviously the guarantees there. And once again, as we've seen a couple of times with these deals already done, it's dangerous just to look at the average yearly value without knowing what the early cash flow and the guarantees are. Do you think the Steelers' best deal is on the table with him at this point? Do you think they're going to stand strong on that and either take it or leave it, or do you think there is some massaging room within these final 3 weeks?
I think there's room. I mean, deadline spurs action. I think they could give him a little extra. I just worry if they're at that point where it's like 20, they're kind of in the 25 range. He's wanting like 30 range. I don't think they're
I don't
probably
think
going
they'll
to.
get a deal done if it's 24, 25 APY, and
No, no.
especially if you're not guaranteeing money past 2026. I think you're looking at least 28, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking for a 30 APY with fully guaranteed money through the first 2 years. As I told Alex the other day, if I'm his agent, I'm looking what they did. I know DK Metcalf's a wide receiver, more established, blah blah blah. But this is an outsider that you had come in from the outside,
Mhm.
that was not groomed by the organization, and you gave him the deal that you gave him. And here I have been. I've caused you no problems. I've played good the first 3 seasons here, and you're disrespecting me on that side of football. I'm your best corner. I think I'm a shutdown corner in the NFL. I'm not taking less than 30 APY first 2 years fully guaranteed. I could see his side arguing that.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I hadn't really thought about the DK Metcalf angle. That's a very good point.
All right. Any closing notes here? We're not going to have enough time to get into any listener emails. This show is designed anyway to mostly put an initial recap and an initial bow around the preseason game against the Jets. I feel like we've beat it up as best as we have possible based on the tape that we both watched to this point. Alex and I will get to a further recap of the game on Monday during that show there. Anything else on the wire right now, or anything else we need to discuss before we get out of here, Ross?
Nope, I'm not seeing anything coming through. I think we're pretty much good.
Tell the people about Depot Dive.
Yeah, Joe Clark and I have been doing it for, I don't know, I guess we're on episode like 110 or something like that. So
Wow.
we've been doing it for almost a couple of years now, which is crazy to think about. And yeah, we just do it once a week. It's not a 3 time a week thing like Terrible Podcast, but we try to get to it on Thursdays as much as possible. Sometimes we have to call an audible because, circumstance. I think, this past week was weird with, oh, actually, sorry. Last week was weird. Just given the game on Thursday, we had to move it to Friday to recap. But anyhow, check that out. It's on YouTube. It's on the Terrible Podcast, Spotify, and Apple, and all that feed as well. And we also have our own listener line where you can have your voice on the show. Just look up our Depot Dive, and there's a number that you can call in and leave a voicemail, and we'd love to answer your questions.
You're also been working on experimenting with some Twitter reaction videos as well, too, right? Tell them about your Twitter address and what you've been working on there.
Yeah, at Ross_McCorkle. I just noticed, I guess you just look at what the X or Twitter development team talks about, and they've been talking a whole lot about video. It kind of seems like they're trying to trend towards being at least somewhat of a competitor to somebody like TikTok. And so they added a new feature where you can react with video to things. And so I've been kind of playing with that. It's just like short 1-2 minute kind of just reactions to some current news. And I've been having fun with it. So I'll probably continue.
All right. Follow Ross on Twitter. You said at Ross_McCorkle, right?
That's right.
All right, Ross, I appreciate you sitting in for Alex as he goes, gets himself ready for the red carpet here on this Saturday morning. I'm sure we're going to have you on future episodes at some point for either me or Alex missing time here. So appreciate that. And make sure if you're listening, you also are listening to the Depot Dive podcast as well, too. So I'll close it up here by saying, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow the great Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex, and today with Ross McCorkle.